BYOD, though, is kind of the latest buzzword that we've been hearing over the past few years, and it is a polarizing topic. For some, it's improved productivity, save money, allowing people to work anywhere, anytime. The other side of the argument, though, is data leakage, uncontrollable list of devices that you have to manage. The truth is, it's actually both. The devil is in the details, in how you execute and deliver on that solution. I'm going to talk a little bit about the mobility landscape and what that means. It's hard to read a blog, it's hard to read an entrepreneurial magazine without seeing mobility, BYOD, people working from anywhere, the influx of contractors, freelancers, and those are entering your organization. These are people that are now becoming employees or still contractors and want to bring their own devices. So what does that mean to the enterprise? And we'll talk a little bit about that. In doing this research, I found some data points that I found interesting. 66% of employees use their own device for work. There's a 75% saturation of smartphones in the US. 3/4 of people entering your organization will have some sort of smartphone. 70% of organizations have a BYOD, a choose your own device program. 84% perform some kind of work outside of your four walls. 88% have security policies, but only 41% can tell you if it's being enforced. And then 90% are predicted in 2+ years to have some sort of BYOD program. But again, I'm here to talk less about the device and more about what's happening past the device. The device is becoming irrelevant in the equation. But before I get to that, I want to talk about the last 10 years, the ride we've been on with mobility. Some of the players in the space remain the same. Some names are no longer relevant. One turned into the other. They're not in sequence, but BlackBerry is what we used to know, and that was the easy part. Executives were our customers, they wanted email, they wanted calendaring, you have a BES service, all was great. Then, as we know, the introduction of the iPhone, and we thought that was a problem. It's fun to look back at those problems now, when all you had to do was give them email and calendaring again. Then you start entering a couple of more devices. Now they want to have the tablets, and now it's the bring your own wearable, it's the bring your own app. Things are happening at a more rapid pace, and at the same time, user expectations are accelerating. I was listening to a podcast a few weeks ago, and it was from the Evernote CEO, and he made a profound statement in my mind, where he said it's no longer about the device, it's now the human is at the center of all of the software that surrounds us, and it's the software that is going to influence our decisions in the market. So your disruptors, they still are probably Dropbox, they still are Evernote and OneNote, and you're probably experiencing some of your shadow IT happening with Amazon and Azure, and those are happening, but Amazon, Azure, you can see those. These here, you do not see coming. Mary Meekert published her State of the Internet a couple of weeks ago, and these were some up-and-coming startups that she has identified as disruptors in the space. What makes them disruptors is it's shadow IT, of course, but they can have these, a business group, can have one of these solutions up and running, deployed to 10 or 15 people on a Monday before 10 a.m., before you've checked all your email. Solutions like Domo, which sit on top of Salesforce. An executive has an urgent request for a prettier dashboard. Domo is going to be the answer. Google it. Salesforce dashboards. You'll find Domo. The one at the bottom, probably for me, is the scariest because it will happen and it can be in place for months and you might not ever know. Your receptionist and the receptionist team buys an iPad for $800, buys a license to Envoy. They want to improve the visitor experience. Visitors come into your enterprise, they tap in their name, they print out a badge, takes a picture of them from the iPad, they sign an NDA, e-signature. All of this is happening in an app, and you might not know. So the problem, how do you get all of this into your ecosystem? And single sign-on, part of our reference architecture, is one of those answers. The changing demand in mobility is happening from your customers, and these are a few of them. The executive is the mainstay. They've always been there with their demands, and they might be the easiest still. They just want to be more productive while they're away from the office. It's security who's asking you tough questions based on the business, asking you to put different things into the enterprise app store, if you have one, for mobile device management. Developers who are being tasked with deploy an app, get an app up and running, our customers need it, our employees need it. How are you going about the security review, the pen testing, deploying your app, submitting it through the App Store? Last week at the WWDC conference, Tim Cook said 98% of Fortune 500 companies have an app in the App Store. I'm not a mathematician, but that tells me 10 organizations do not. Pretty small number. Now, on the other side of this slide is the business and your user community that is saying, I'm putting stuff in Dropbox, deal with it, what's the Wi-Fi password? And the business making grand statements saying, we're mobile first now, and you don't quite know what that means. So you have to get your head wrapped around that. This is our view at ahead of this mobile ecosystem. The first two, security, manageability, have always been there. They're prevalent in some of these MDM solutions that have been around for a few years, like the Mobile Iron and the Good. That's real device focused, though. And that's really focused around how do you encrypt, how do you wipe the device, and those are becoming table stakes when you're evaluating solutions. The hard part is when you need to collaborate and be more productive using a mobile solution. And that's where you need to really evaluate who those third-party integrations are going to be. If you're going to go out and find other SaaS applications, if you're going to build your own, what are you going to do to make sure that the user experience, which wraps around the entire pillars, that needs to be in the forefront of your mind. What we're seeing at ahead is a lot more business process needs to be integrated with these SaaS applications, meaning single sign-on has to be at the front end, so people are authenticated in and using these applications as platforms to collaborate with each other. File sync and share is a thing, but it's more about just having a device on both of my machines or my tablet or my phone. It's how do I interact with people? How do I keep things out of email? How do I sign for something electronically? Those are the problems people are trying to solve to be more productive outside of the office. I wanted to try to provide some value to you from this presentation. So we have this do-it-yourself mobility. 60 to 90 days, you can probably tackle these steps in your organization. We have a architecture identified here. This is how we see the landscape. Your delivery controllers coming in, the single sign-on, centralized portal. But what I did not talk about today was virtual computing in terms of desktops and applications. However, that could be relevant in your organization. That is still a demand. There are still use cases for it. And people need to kind of have that single pane of glass when they're looking at the applications and desktops that they need to be productive. So we put this together, and I'm showing it to you today. And these slides are available. You can text me or email me, hit me up after this. But with this, there's some kind of quick and easy steps to take. In the strategy part, what I'm recommending is identify what technologies you have in place in each of these boxes here, so you can then go back to your architects, go back to your engineering teams, and determine where your gaps are. What don't you have a solution in place? And ask yourself, do you need one? But fill in these boxes, determine what you have, and look at the cloud space as well. Do you necessarily need to host these solutions, or can they be a cloud-based solution for you? But when we look at this entire architecture here, for the user experience to really be effective and efficient, most of these need to be filled in. From the design perspective, again, take a look at these applications, the solution that you have in place, and do a version control. See where you are, see where you need to be. Are there features that you're missing out on by not being at the latest version? And pilot. That's pilot to your rogue users. You know who they are. Get them involved early, get them involved often. They will be the most vocal for you, and they'll help you fine-tune that user experience. This is the marketing slide, and that's it. So we're helping a lot of organizations, again, with their mobile SaaS integrations. We're helping them identify what that mobile content management strategy is. Where is this data? How are they managing it? How are they governing the data that's out there on these mobile devices? Not necessarily on the devices, but where it is and how people are accessing it. The business process that everyone is trying to resolve by having these tablets in their hands at a conference, are they still able to work? So we're walking through these use cases using this innovation framework to help drive out those use cases, understand what's happening in each of your organizations, and documenting, scaling, and helping you implement. So I will not keep you much longer because, one, I'm out of slides, and two, I want to leave you with a couple of points. Eric talked this morning about simplifying your organization, simplifying the experience, and that's a great piece of advice. Looking at that reference architecture, it doesn't look that simple, but what we found working with organizations is if you put the right pieces in place, make sure you have the right integrations, that you have the right partners, that you can really surround a nice user experience around mobility, and bring your own device is less and less relevant, and it's more about the user experience. So I appreciate your time. I made it on time. These are a couple of resources I recommend, one being mine, the other one being User-Centric IT. And this is a consortium of enterprises or organizations that have really taken a different look at the mobile space, put the user at the center of their architecture, and really laid out some nice frameworks around what you need to consider when you deploy mobile technology.